They said weddings are a time of joy, a time when love is celebrated before God and man. But on the day I wore my white gown, my life was torn apart. Not by a stranger, but by my own sister. I was the youngest, the happiest, and maybe the one she envied the most. A lie, a fake scandal, and a church full of whispers. That was how my wedding ended. But pain does not have the final say, because 5 years later, God gave me beauty for ashes, and this time, no one could stop it. This is my story, a story of betrayal, healing, and unstoppable grace. My name is Chioma, and this is how I rose again. Chioma was the jewel of her family, the youngest of 5 siblings, graceful, kind-hearted, and deeply loved. Her life seemed like a beautiful melody, especially after she met Chidi, a gentle, God-fearing man who loved her with his whole being. They had been together for 3 years, and their love had blossomed into something sacred. Their families were aware of the relationship, and both sides were eagerly counting down to their wedding day. They had even found a cozy duplex in Enugu and were preparing to move in after the ceremony. Chioma's elder sister, Nena, was the oldest and most accomplished. She had built a thriving business empire and was known across town for her sharp intellect. But behind the expensive lace wrappers and painted smiles, Nena harbored a growing bitterness. Love had always eluded her. While her younger sisters found affection easily, Nena's relationships either never started or crumbled before they bloomed. And now, watching Chioma prepare for a fairy tale wedding to Chidi, the kind of man Nena secretly prayed for, her jealousy festered like an untreated wound. Chioma remained unaware of her sister's envy. She danced through her wedding preparations with joy, and everyone admired how deeply she and Chidi cherished each other. The church was beautifully decorated that Saturday morning, filled with family, friends, and whispers of admiration. Then came that dreaded moment. If there is anyone here who has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now, or forever hold your peace, the priest declared. The church held its breath. Suddenly an elderly man with a gray beard and a walking stick stood up from the back row. "Father, I object," he said, his voice loud and cracking. All eyes turned to him. "This bride, this woman," he said, pointing at Chioma, "is carrying my child." A wave of shock crashed over the church. Chioma gasped, shaking her head. "I don't know this man," she cried. "I swear before God and man, I've never seen him before." But the old man wasn't done. He staggered forward, reaching into his agbada, and flung a handful of photographs into the air. The pictures rained down like cursed confetti. The congregation picked them up, and what they saw turned celebration into horror. The images were of Chioma and the old man, intimate and indecent. "No, no," Chioma wailed. "This is witchcraft. I swear these are fake." But the damage had been done. Chidi, shaking and sweating, collapsed right there at the altar. He was rushed to the hospital, and when he regained consciousness, his heart shattered beyond repair. He told Chioma he couldn't go through with the marriage. Her pleas fell on deaf ears. The wedding that was to be the happiest day of her life became the darkest. Chioma returned home disgraced and broken, but what no one knew yet was that the old man had been hired by her own sister, Nena, the one who smiled at her gown fitting, who paid for the wedding makeup, who gave a toast the night before the wedding, had orchestrated the entire destruction out of envy. And karma never forgets. 5 years had passed since that cursed wedding day, the day Chioma's world collapsed before the altar, the day her dreams were shattered by betrayal and lies. In that time, she buried her pain in her books, determined to become something greater. And she did. Now Dr. Chioma Obiageli, she wore her white coat like armor, saving lives and healing others, even while her own heart remained bruised. Love? She had shut the door long ago. That chapter was closed. One humid Tuesday afternoon, Chioma was in her office at Grace Memorial Hospital in Enugu. She was attending to a patient, a tall, well-groomed man in his early 40s. His name was Obinna. He had just returned from the U.S. to visit his aging parents, and barely a week into his stay, came down with a severe bout of malaria. Chioma was professional, calm, and efficient as she examined him. But Obinna's eyes never left her face. He smiled warmly, even in his weakness. "You're very beautiful," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Chioma chuckled and dismissed it. "It's probably the malaria talking," she said, not even lifting her eyes from his chart. But Obinna wasn't hallucinating. Over the next few days, he returned diligently for his injections, never missing an appointment. Every time his eyes found her, his compliments were gentle, never disrespectful, but always sincere. On the third day, the final day of his treatment, he waited for her at the hospital's main gate, just as the sun began to set over the horizon. "Dr. Chioma," he called. She turned, surprised to see him standing outside. "I know you're always in a hurry," he said with a soft laugh, "but I've been meaning to ask again. Would you allow me to take you to lunch or coffee?" Chioma hesitated. The ghost of her past still whispered in her ears. She began to make excuses. Tight schedules, on-call nights, hospital rounds, but Obinna wasn't buying any of it. "I understand you may be protecting your heart," he said, "but I'm not trying to rush anything. I'd just like to know you. No pressure." There was something about the way he spoke, gentle, sincere, unshaken. Maybe it was the years he'd spent abroad. Maybe it was his spirit. Maybe it was God. But that day, Chioma paused, took a deep breath, and gave him her number. At first, their conversations were casual. A "good morning, doc," here, a "how's your shift going there?" But over time, something inside her began to stir, something she thought had died. Laughter returned to her voice. Her smile became less forced. She realized she was slowly giving herself permission to feel again. Chioma and Obinna's connection blossomed slowly, like the morning sun rising after a long stormy night. He was patient, always kind, never rushing her. He'd show up outside her hospital with a flask of pepper soup on her long shifts. Sometimes he'd send text messages that made her blush in the middle of a ward round. For the first time in years, Chioma laughed again. Not the polite, guarded laugh she gave to colleagues, but the deep, belly-rich laughter that came from somewhere real. 3 months into their budding relationship, Obinna invited Chioma to his family home in Nsukka for Sunday lunch. He wanted her to meet his parents. Nervous but encouraged by how peaceful and genuine Obinna had been, she agreed. The compound was large, a beautiful blend of old Eastern charm and modern touches. His mother, Mama Obinna, was warm and welcoming. She held Chioma's hands with joy. "Our son has found a good woman," she beamed. "May God complete what he has started." But then his father came out. Tall, gray-bearded, calm. Chioma froze. Her heart dropped to her stomach. It was him, the old man from her wedding, the man who stood at the altar 5 years ago and accused her falsely. He looked shocked too, but said nothing. Chioma's hands began to shake. "Obinna," she whispered, turning to him with terror in her eyes. This is your father?" Obinna looked between the two, confused. "Yes. Is everything okay?" But it wasn't. Not at all. She turned and ran, got into her car, and drove without saying a word. Obinna chased after her for days, called, texted, but she shut everyone out. The past had come back, and it was worse than any nightmare. The man she had begun to fall in love with was the son of the man who ruined her life. But deep down, Chioma needed answers. She returned to Nsukka quietly one evening, standing at the gates of the family compound. This time it was Obina's father who came out to meet her. He sighed deeply and said, "I've been waiting for this day." Tears welled up in Chioma's eyes. "Why did you do it? I didn't know you. I'd never seen you before." "Why?" And then he dropped a bombshell. "I was paid to do it. A woman came to me. She said if I could help her destroy a wedding by faking a scandal, I would be paid in dollars. I was desperate. My business had collapsed. I never knew who you were until today." Chioma's knees buckled. The woman, it had to be Nena. The betrayal burned anew. But this time she had someone, Obina, who stood by her side, held her through the storm, and helped her confront the past. Obina was shattered too, ashamed of what his father had done, but he didn't run away. He held Chioma's hands and told her, "I still want you. We'll fight this together." "How can your own sister hate you that much?" he whispered, his voice shaking. Chioma didn't have an answer. "I need to see her. I need to hear her say it." 2 days later, Chioma arrived at her father's house in Aka. Nena was seated under the mango tree in the compound, sipping zobo and flipping through her tablet, still looking like the queen of elegance. Chioma walked straight up to her. "You hired someone to destroy my wedding." Nena didn't flinch. "I know it was you," Chioma said again, stronger this time. The man confessed. Obina's father. He said a woman paid him in dollars to scatter my marriage, and we both know it wasn't Amaka or Chisholm. It was you. A tense silence followed. Nena slowly set her glass down. Her eyes met Chioma's, cold, calm, unapologetic. "So what if I did?" she said flatly. "Do you think life is fair? You, the last born, getting all the attention, the love, the perfect man, while I, the one who broke her back to put this family on the map, have never known what it means to be loved?" Chioma's mouth opened in disbelief. "You destroyed my life," she screamed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "You made me carry shame for 5 years. 5 years, Nena." "You bounced back, didn't you?" Nena sneered. "You're a doctor now, and dating a man richer than the last one. What are you crying about?" Chioma stepped back, heart pounding. "You need help, Nena. Deep spiritual help." But Nena just laughed. Their mother had come out by then, along with their other siblings, drawn by the shouting. And when the truth spilled out, when Chioma revealed the confession of Obina's father, everyone was stunned. Even their father, who had always protected Nena's pride, sat down and wept like a child. It was a day of reckoning. Nena, exposed, walked into the house and locked her door. She didn't apologize. Not that day, but something shifted in Chioma. A weight lifted. She had faced the darkness and come out on the other side, stronger. She left Aka that evening, and this time, when Obina proposed a month later, quietly in her hospital office with a simple ring and eyes full of love, Chioma said yes, not just to him, but to healing, to freedom, to love, finally born in truth. Chioma and Obina planned the wedding with grace and intention. No noise, no unnecessary crowd, just real people, sincere love, and the hand of God. The venue? The same church where her world once shattered. "I want to rewrite my story in the very place it was broken," Chioma told Obina. He held her hand and nodded. "Then let this altar witness your restoration." When the wedding day came, the skies were gray with thick clouds. But just as Chioma stepped into the church, the clouds parted and sunlight streamed through the stained glass, like heaven's silent applause. Everything was perfect. No interruptions, no lies, no shame, just love. The priest declared them husband and wife. Obina kissed her softly as cheers filled the church. Nena stood at the back, alone. She simply watched as her youngest sister walked out of the church, whole, victorious, untouchable. Their eyes met for one moment. Chioma said nothing. She didn't scowl. She didn't smile. She just walked past. Later that evening, after the reception, Chioma's parents called her aside. Your sister is sorry," her mother said. "We know what she did was terrible, but blood is blood. Please forgive her." Chioma looked at them with grace in her eyes. "I have forgiven her. From my heart," she said quietly. "But I don't want to see her. I don't want her in my life. I won't pretend she didn't destroy me." There was a silence. 2 years later, inside a beautifully furnished sitting room with legal documents on the table and wedding photos on the wall, Nina now sits beside her husband, a dignified lawyer in his 40s. Though surrounded by success and comfort, her eyes are hollow. On the table lies a medical report, infertility, unexplained, next to a Bible. Cut to a quiet church office. A humble, elderly pastor is taking to Nina. "You have deeply offended someone. God says go and make peace with your sister. Only then will your womb open." Dark clouds rumble as rain pours heavily over a quiet street. Nina, now soaked to the bone, stands at the gate of Chioma's home, crying, "Chioma, Biko, forgive me. I'm sorry, I wronged you." Inside, Chioma looks through the window. Her heart pounds, her face torn between pain and compassion. Lightning flashes as the gate slowly creaks open, and Chioma, wrapped in a light shawl, steps out slowly into the rain. Her face is calm, but her eyes are filled with emotion. She pauses a moment, watching her big sister break down, the same sister who once ruined her wedding. Suddenly, Chioma drops her shawl and walks toward her. "It's okay, Nina. I forgive you. Please go home and dry off." And so, beneath the calm evening sky, with laughter echoing softly through their home, Chioma sat beside Obina, their hands gently intertwined. On her lap, their 2-year-old daughter giggled. It had been a long road, marked by betrayal, loss, healing, and forgiveness. But in the end, love prevailed. Chioma was no longer the broken bride of yesterday. She was a woman made whole, surrounded by grace, family, and a future she never thought possible. Obena looked at her with the same quiet adoration that had first drawn her in. Chioma smiled, not because everything had been perfect, but because redemption had found her, and joy had chosen to stay.